My buddy Foster Klein, remember when he was running that program up there in Evergreen? He was always looking for respite providers, people who would come in and take over a house for a weekend so the parents could get away, because they were working with these therapeutic foster parents is what
emotionally disturbed kids.
Oh, yeah.
The parents needed breaks.
Yeah. So he's always trying to figure out, how do you interview to find somebody who can really handle a kid like that? Because that's quite a trick.
Yeah.
Well, one day, this lady came in from a farm out east of here. Her name happened to be Mabel. And just like the kids say on accident, he asked a question. You know, he said, Mabel, what would you do if you told a kid to do something and he wouldn't do it? And she looked at him and said, huh? And he hired her right on the spot, because that was the attitude he was looking for. He couldn't believe somebody would think that way. She was great. And since then, we've told a lot of people that, you know, it's a good idea if your kids are having problems being defiant or something like that. It's good to to offer them something that they're going to do with the family on the weekend.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And during the week when the kid is kind of obnoxious, you just say, oh man, that was not very smart. I'm going to have to do something about that, but I'll get back to you on it. Then on Saturday morning, right when it's time to leave, suddenly remember it. Oh, remember the other night I asked you to do something in a nice way and you said no, and it was a big old hassle? Man, what if that happened out in public? That'd be terrible. Well, you can go with us someday when we don't have to worry about that anymore. Well, who's going to take care of me? Mabel. She's coming up the walk as we speak. She'll be the babysitter, or if the kids are older, the house guard, right?
Right.
Yeah, and you'll need to figure out how to handle Mabel. Well, Mabel is trained specially to not be a very pleasant person to be around. I think the best Mabel is the one who talks like this. My God, kid, no wonder somebody has to be paid to be around you. Get in your room. You know, you can come out when your mother comes home. Don't like kids in the first place. You know?
Mabel kind of became a legend, in other words. And Mabel was not a mean lady at all. No. She was just one of those people that just naturally commanded respect and just a naturally great behavior manager.
Yeah.
So when Foster asked her, what do you do when kids act up? She really couldn't think of anything because, quite frankly, they didn't act up much around Mabel.
That reminds me that when I was a principal, I was always hiring a lot of teachers, and I'd interview them and ask them about what kind of discipline techniques they. I found out that those people who knew the most different discipline techniques were the most ineffective. Because they were always having to use them, right?
Yeah, there was always something going wrong that they had to fix.
Exactly, because they weren't using relationships, prevention, and that kind of stuff. They were mostly focused on how can I consequence the kid, or how can I react when they misbehave, rather than the prevention.
Right. You know, that reminds me of the research of Jacob Coonan. And back in the 1970s, he was really fascinated with the difference between highly effective and less effective classroom managers. And he went off and he studied classroom after classroom. And what did he find? Well, did he find that the more effective managers were using better types of consequences? Not at all. He actually found out that they used fewer consequences because they were particularly skilled at preventing problems or keeping those behavior problems really small, you know, nipping them in the bud, as you would say. And essentially what all the research has shown us since is that effective teachers focus most of their energy on prevention, whereas less effective teachers focus most of their energy on detention or consequences or reacting to problems. And essentially what we found, what the research tells us, is that the great behavior problem preventers have two things in common. And the first is that they have amazing peripheral vision, as you mentioned, and they're always scanning, and they know when problems are going on, and they realize that ignoring misbehavior does not work. See, because what happens is it always gets worse, and then it grows, other kids get involved in it, so they know that they have to intervene early early in the sequence of misbehavior. So as soon as there's a problem, they get right on it and deal with it. Now, the second thing that they all have in common is that they have a toolbox of a lot of them are silly little tricks and techniques that are designed to sometimes distract students or confuse students or get students thinking about something different so the teacher can continue teaching. So Koonin, what he found is great teachers have with-itness. That's what he called it.
That's what he called it,
and
yeah.
that's what they're with it. They're on top of everything, and they know what's going on. They intervene early. And they also have what's called overlapping. And that means that they overlap instruction with management. In other words, they don't stop. And hear me loud and clear. Effective classroom managers do whatever they can to maintain the flow of instruction so they don't have to stop. Because, folks, you've been there. Once you stop, what do the kids realize? Well, we can stop this teacher.
Yeah, we got power.
Yeah, all we have to do is act up, and she's going to stop and deal with this, and we'll act up. And you know, you feel like you're playing that whack-a-mole game at the fair. You know, you whack one and another one comes up, and you feel like you're trying to herd cats.
I had a new teacher come into my school, and on the first day, I noticed that the kids were all coming in from recess, and they were complaining about what was going on a game that they were playing out there. So she had a class meeting. And that went for about 15 minutes. And the next day they came in and they were complaining, and the class meeting went about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the next day it's still going on.
Hold on a second. I guess the next day was even longer.
It was longer. Yeah, it's going on 30 minutes. Pretty soon the third day, it's going on for about 40 minutes. One of the kids gets up to go out to the bathroom, and I catch him out in the hall, and I say, boy, you guys are having to have class minutes or meetings over this problem? Yeah. And I said, that's kind of a big deal. And he says, beats math.
He's right. But, you know, really, the primary focus with Love and Logic is on prevention. So if you look at Love and Logic skills, the ones you're learning in this curriculum, about 95% of them are about how to prevent problems or at least keep them small. How about relationships?
Oh, yeah. Big, yeah.
How about choices?
Yes,
yeah.
big.
Yeah.
Every one of the techniques that we offer is built to enhance relationships and not to destroy it.
Right. And then we have some techniques in this program that are devoted to when prevention doesn't work, because we know that sometimes that's the case. See, it's my belief that if we can work on discipline problems on two levels, we're going to be far more successful. The first level is prevention. That's about 95% of our time and energy. The other level is on what happens when that doesn't work. We need some skills for that. But there's some programs out there that focus entirely on prevention, and they work pretty good until they don't work anymore, right? And then you don't have any skills. And there's other programs out there that focus entirely on reacting to problems, and those are the ones where you're always having to go and put a check mark on the board or pull a colored slip or intervene in every sort of situation.
A new one comes out every year.
Yeah. And see, the problem, though, is that pretty soon we run out of consequences. And have you noticed that there are fewer and fewer consequences out there that actually work with difficult kids?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And if we aren't spending the lion's share of our time and energy on prevention, it doesn't take too long before we run out of consequences, and there is nothing left.